And in other major cities, people have been waiting for hours and hours to get vehicles. I saw one long winding queue at the Atomic Junction the last time. People are struggling to get vehicles to go to work and struggling to get vehicles to return from work. So what exactly is the fix for this problem? We've always had queues at bus terminals, at bus stops, but this has quite been unprecedented. And what has been the state's response? The state has the Metro Mass Transit, it has STC, it has all sort of entities, including Ayalolo, to be able to intervene and get this done. We have not been able to do so, with people struggling to come by what is a means that is as basic as it gets.
You stay in a queue for about 30 minutes at least before you get a car and you get to work. So roughly you spend about 3-4 hours before you get to work every day.
It's difficult for me that the way I'm not getting car earlier to go, it have disturbed me so much.
The government has to sit up and analyze the situation and let us all solve it amicably. But if I will say something right now, I will say the Minister of Transport supposed not to be at post again.
How do we get this right? Ghanaians home and abroad connect on these important matters right after these messages.
Momo. It has made life happen in lots of good ways.
Mr. Kwanzaa, Mensaka insurance claim no.
It has put together beautiful weddings. It has filled the bellies of boys at their favorite wachi joint.
My guy, stop. Who they chop cancel these days?
It has made millions of businesses possible.
Mensaka no. We are back in business.
With just a few taps, money moves faster, easier, and safer. Momo understands the weight of your trust in us. We continuously enhance security with features like self-paying reset to help you protect your money. Momo will only call you with 0244 300,000. No MTN or Momo staff will call or ask for your PIN or one-time password. Do not transfer funds to anyone whose identity you have not verified. Do not approve any prompts you have not initiated. Momo, still Munsaka.
Ajua, challenge these days, new level crowd. Where did you pass?
Me, pass somewhere. I just switched for a better life. I switched for comfort. Look, your salary deserves better.
Switch?
Yeah.
How do you mean?
I switched my salary account to Fidelity Bank.
Oh, okay.
And that's my jackpot. I get higher loan amounts with lower interest rates, as well as personalized financial support. They gave me a loan to expand my side hustle. And the terms are just flexible.
Wow.
Your salary deserves better.
Oh, my salary deserves better, Pa. You see the way you are smiling wide? Yes, I will switch and smile wider. Your salary deserves better. Switch to Fidelity Bank today and enjoy lower interest rate, car and home loan, personalized financial support, and a smile that lasts. Switch and smile wider. Fidelity Bank. Believe with us.
If I believe with us, Fidelity. If I know I need your side, Fidelity.
At Star Oil, we believe fuel is not just a commodity, it is a lifeline. Every cedi saved at the pump is a cedi that helps a mother send her child to school. A farmer transports food to the market, or a young entrepreneur deliver their first order. Our mission is to make fuel more accessible by offering consistently competitive prices, helping ease the financial burden on Ghanaian households. In a country where transportation costs can consume nearly a third of household income, this is not just business. It's a social responsibility. Star Oil, still quality and affordable fuels for all.
Brushing gets more fun with your kids with the new Pepsodent Kids toothpaste. Give your smiles protection that lasts. Grab yours today from a store near you. This advert is FDA approved.
For many years,
we've been solving Ghana's water storage problems with quality tanks. Syntex tank. You know, it is strong, it's tough, and reliable. And now, we are in to solve the #1 problem when it comes to water carriage: our pipes. With the state-of-the-art machinery, Syntex is providing very strong, tough, reliable, high quality, and durable pipes at a reasonable price. This is Syntex Pipes. With Syntex Pipes, water flows wow. I mean, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. If they carry water, no wahala. With Syntex Pipe, our water problems are solved. Syntex, are you strong? Are you tough?
Welcome back to Ghana Connect. And before we get into the conversation with guests who really have personal stories to share, they have views to express on this matter, and also generally what the performance of the government has been really under the year under review, which in fact in the past few days and weeks has been overshadowed by this crippling crisis when it comes to the commercial transport sector.
You stay in a queue for about 30 minutes at least before you get a car and you get to work. So roughly you spend about 3-4 hours before you get to work every day.
It's difficult for me that like the way I'm not getting car earlier to go, it have disturbed me so much.
Like most countries, Ghana.
Welcome back to the show. We connect on these very, very vexed matters. A lot of people out there very concerned about this. So 055-1111-997, 055-1111-997. What has been your own experience? Please do send us a message and share it, and we'll be very excited to read it on it. Let me introduce to you, I guess, connecting on this very important matter. Stephen Kwejo Techia is a nurse. Connects with us on this matter. Stephen, it's good to have you connect with us. Hello, Stephen.
I'm good to be on the show.
Brilliant.
Good to be on the show. Thank you.
Carla Olympio is a corporate lawyer and communication strategist. I'm not sure Carla is a trotro person, but I'm sure she's been looking at the situation and like, whoa, what is going on? Carla, it's good to have you connect with us.
Good evening, Kwaku. Happy New Year. It's a pleasure. Happy New Year to you, your team, and all the listeners as well, of which I usually am one.
Definitely. The team also wishes you Happy New Year. And then, Pakwesi Shandoff is a concerned citizen. He's been a lifelong patron of Trotro until these days. I think they say levels don't change. So I'm not sure he does again. But Shandoff, it's good to have you connect with us.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. Happy New Year, Kwaku.
Brilliant. And we'll be joined also by Dr. Samia, Government Communications Aide. Let me start with you, Stephen Kwejo Techia. What has the situation been like for you?
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity given me. So personally, I would want to say for the issue of transportation, linking it to productivity here in Ghana has been a major canker when you compare to the advanced world. Because when you go to most of the advanced world, workers are being paid based on productive hours. And for that matter, the systems have been made in such a way that transportation wouldn't be an impediment to, you losing some productive hours because they are going to pay you for that. Since I'm a health person, I would want to take it from that angle. I have had a lot of concerns from some colleagues, especially those who work within the Greater Accra region. Some do work in hospitals, but then they do stay far away from their workplaces. And most of them do use the trotro as their means of transportation to work. Some of the issues they have had over the years has been people who do run night shifts. They do go for a 12-hour night shift. And because of delays in getting to work of their colleagues who will be coming for the morning, they will have to wait for some hours before leaving. And even after leaving their workplace, they will have to wait in the trotro for some time in the traffic jam before getting home. For that matter, they will get just a few hours to rest and will have to return to work. They will therefore come back to work exhausted, and they wouldn't get the needed energy to work as they are supposed to have to work. And for that matter, it's been an issue. And they do lose some of the productive hours in the traffic jams. And for that matter, even if they were to be paid based on the productive hours at work, that would have been a problem. When you come to the area where personally I do work, I wouldn't say I work in the Bono region, that's Sunyani to be specific. I wouldn't say the traffic jam here is too much compared to those within the Greater Accra region or some other areas. But when you come here, at times the road network itself is a canker. And I think it all has to do with this transportation issue. So at times, even road linking some of the towns around to the health facilities, the big health facilities here, is an issue. And for that matter, if there is an emergency and a patient has to be transported to the hospital, it becomes an issue. And if care is not taken, the patient might not get to the health facility alive. And I had the opportunity to visit in India one of these days. And there was one thing I saw and I realized, although I think Ghana can get there, it might take some time. But in the interim, some measures can be put in place whilst long-term plans are being drawn to reach at that level. When you get to their cities, there were some of the road networks, intra-city roads, very vast. A single lane can occupy like 6-7 vehicles, and movement was so smooth you wouldn't feel any traffic. And the railway networks were also working as well. Overhead trains were working here and there, and for that matter, it will be very difficult. I visited the city of Hyderabad to be specific. It will be very difficult for you to find traffic jam within that city. Although the population there is even getting to the population of Ghana within that city alone. That's the third city, largest city in India. And for that matter, I think Ghana can get there in the long term.
Yeah, I like what you talk about, the comparative experience, and I like that you bring in the Indian example. Very, very vast country, a billion at least people, citizens living in India. And I mean, talking about the comparative and abroad and all of that, of course, Kala has a lot of experience. Kala, have you seen anything like this before? I mean, of course, every now and then. The last time I saw anything close to this was when truck drivers declared a strike. People were stranded all over the place. But to be seeing the kind of queues I'm seeing, I saw an overhead video. The number of people lining up for one vehicle to come, it will pick like 12 people, and it was just crazy. What have you made of all the wahala in Accra over the last few weeks?
So, Kwaku, I have a car, so I don't take trotro, and I can only say thank God for that, because the first and actually when your producer sent me a message inviting me onto the program, I said, well, I don't take trotro, so I don't know if I'm qualified to speak on this, but they said, come and give your opinion of the whole situation. So I said, fine. The first I noticed of it, to be honest, was about November. There was one evening when I was driving home from work, rush hour traffic. After a long day, I was already tired, traffic jam. I was stressed. I was reaching Shashi, which is near where I live, turning the junction. And I noticed a very, very long queue at the bus stop there. And I remember thinking, what is going on? And I also remember thinking, God, what a nightmare. I myself was so stressed driving my own car through rush hour traffic for an hour and a half to get home. And I thought, imagine now having to go and stand at a bus stop for an hour or an hour and a half in the heat, just adding stress to your life, which is already stressful. So the next day I spoke to my office manager, and she was telling me how, some of the trotros even refuse to take people, or they'll take people halfway. They won't take people the whole way they're going. And I just thought, this is just, it's unbearable. And I know we're a developing country. I know that our finances are stretched. I know that our authorities have so many things to think about. But to be honest, I think that Accra is becoming more and more unlivable. It's not just the transportation. It is things like there's no pavements on the side of the street. People are walking and they're risking being knocked down by motorbikes. They're cutting down the trees, so it's getting hotter as people are walking in the sun. And then at the same time, our government, people are pushing us off the roads with outriders, having the easiest time of it. And I really think that, there now has to be a focus on making Accra a more livable city on every level, and providing public transport is important. Most of the trotros that we see, they're not public transport, they're private anyway. The government has to do better, like other countries do.
It's incredible. Dr. Samia, I mean, 1 year of the government in the office, I mean, they've gotten a lot of plaudits from a lot of areas. One would have thought this would have been an easy fix, and it just gets compounded by the day. And all we hear is sometimes lamentation from public officials. When your boss, Felix Ofosu-Kwakye, spoke this week, he sought to blame that on profiteering, which really sometimes can be a symptom of the free market. But what is the solution of government? We've seen pockets of it here and there, and people say they are not feeling it.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much, Kwaku Asante. Good evening to my co-panelists and good evening to our listeners. Definitely, the government of President John Dramani Mahama has risen to the occasion. We have taken notice of the matter. I can reliably inform you that from Monday, we are going to see a number of Metro Mass buses, complementing the efforts of private, transport owners. We are going to see some STC buses. We are going to see a number of efforts in order to address the matter. What the Honorable Minister for Government Communication said is actually the truth. And you see, we need to be candid about it. The rendition from these private transport owners is that they are trying to make profit. But there is really no motivation in that regard. There are about 3 factors that, cause the hike in transport prices. Number 1 is the cost of fuel. Number 2 is the cost of the vehicle itself. Number 3 is the cost of spare parts. you and I know that within a space of a year, the cost of a liter of fuel has been slashed by about 50%. This morning we saw that a liter of fuel is selling about 9 cities, 90 pesos. We have heard reports, indeed, Guta was, Guta had a meeting with the Trade Committee of Parliament. They actually came there and told the whole country that over 4,000 items have reduced in price. Our folks in Abosoka have actually done a video and told the whole country that they have reduced their prices. On what basis, therefore, should we see this horrendous spectacle where, private trotro owners are engaging in clear rent seeking, circumventing the processes? A driver who is moving from Circle to Achimota is now truncating the processes. He moves from Circle to Abeka to Tesano before he gets to Achimota in order to get double. It does not explain away why within a short period of time, it does appear that all the trotro sprinters have vanished from the roads. There should be an explanation to it. So whilst we compliment the effort of these private owners, government has risen to the occasion. We have taken steps to provide these STC buses that were in use during the Christmas festivities. We are going to bring them back. Metro Mass is going to come on board, and there are so many steps we are going to put in place to address it. But this speaks to, you see, public transport has always, in many countries, been at the behest of the private sector. In fact, when you read chapter 6 of our constitution, which talks about directive principles of state policy on the side of the economy, the constitution is clear that government must put in place measures to develop the economy, especially the private sector. That is why we have taken steps to allow and to encourage the private sector to thrive as far as transport is concerned. They are, when you go to many developed countries, the UK and what have you, these transports entities are largely private sector driven. So we are not happy about it. We are all saddened about it. It is obviously a regrettable situation. And we believe that necessary stakeholder consultations and meetings will be held in order to avert the matter. Indeed, it is unfortunate that the Ayalolo buses that were about 250 some time ago, because of poor maintenance, have now been slashed to about 87. You understand? And all these buses are being used at some other equally vital areas. But we can assure the public that we have taken notice of it. We are taking responsibility. Government will step in from probably Monday, and we will see clear change. We will see clear difference. We apologize for the inconveniences caused.
Right. I mean, Shandov, there are those who say that, listen, this has been completely uncalled for in the way you see it. There's been a lot of blame trading. The government has said that this is the rent-seeking behavior, like Dr. Samia explains, and there are those who say that, listen, transportation is a national security issue. You cannot leave it entirely to the private sector. And when it feels like this, you see spectacular suffering by the people. What could government be doing in that regard? The government has been promising a few things. Do you accept those who say that the government has failed in this regard and should be acting more frontally than it has now?
Well, yeah, so good evening, Kwaku.
Yes, you agree that the government...
No, I said I'm greeting you.
No, the question first. And
no, but I'm greeting you. Yes, it's just accepting the invitation to commentate on the issue. A new year has begun. I don't think we should begin on any mischievous notes whatsoever. So happy New Year to you and to all our listeners who have been connecting with us on this particular platform. For starters, I do not understand why anybody would make any inference or suggestion to the effect that government has failed in this particular regard, because already we have seen the interventions that are being rolled out and the many more rafts of policies that would be thrown in the not too distant future. The government spokesperson Samia tells us that effective Monday we're going to see more interventions, but it is, for me, it's not even about the interventions. I think we should begin to appraise and diagnose the root of this particular headache that we are suddenly confronted with. Because 6 months ago, we didn't have this. 5 months ago, we didn't have this. Indeed, 3 months ago, we obviously didn't even have this. 2 months ago, we were not in this kind of quagmire. Why are we coming here in the very first place? I think that the answer to that question is very important. I think we have gotten into this national complexity because of what obviously appears to be a certain avarice and unbridled appetite for wealth accumulation by some operators within the private sector. Because look, I don't know how to put it. I was going to say I used to commute daily from Odoko. I mean, when I was here, for example, when I used to work here, from Odoko, then from Odoko to Circle, then from Circle to this place. That has been regularly my routine. Of course, it has changed. Now, during that time, Kwaku, I recall, especially on sometimes Fridays, when you close from work and you want to go back to Odoko, you would realize that some of the bus conductors, private operators, suddenly, and I don't know whether it is, I don't know how it happens, the moment they see that a lot of passengers have gathered, all of a sudden, they vary at their will and discretion, arbitrarily, how much they just want to charge, without any form of, if you like, considerate reasoning whatsoever. They just look at the passengers, they feel, sometimes you hear them say, okay, then all they vary, and of course, everybody wants to go home early. Okay, you want to go home, you want to go and freshen up. People like you who fortunately have girlfriends and spouses, you wouldn't want to stay on the street. You say, oh, let me go home and then, go and freshen up. So you are in a hurry. So if they tell you, if Kwaku, for example, your girlfriend tells you that Kwaku may travel, and the driver says that, look, come and pay 20 cedis, you definitely would want to go. So it's basically capitalizing on the situation, taking advantage of vulnerable passengers. And that, for me, is what really is the problem. It is the appetite and the attitude of the private, transport operators. That is why yesterday I saw a publication on Joy News, which I was very excited about. The fact that a task force has been deployed to clamp down on the excesses of these activities. It is useful because, look,
which exact activities?
I mean, the apparent extortions.
How is it extortion? And let me just quiz this knowledge a little.
Right.
I've heard it a bit around. So when you pick a boat
right
from Medina to Dansoman,
right,
there's a price,
absolutely,
say 10 cities. But if you get to Dansoman, it may change. But why is a driver supposed to pick somebody from Medina to Dansoman, and then you pay the same price, regardless of the traffic situation? So if you sit in traffic for 20 hours, the same price, even though the driver is going to encounter significant cost taking you to the same venue because of the traffic situation and other factors.
Now that
may not have been factored in at the time they picked you.
Absolutely. Now, this side of the argument would have held a lot of water if the traffic situation was the norm. But unfortunately, the traffic situation is artificially created. Sometimes it is even circumstantial. So for the fact that they are not always in traffic, they cannot adopt a rate that, of course, is obviously unbearable. It's not a case that every day they are in traffic. Look, Kwaku, if every day that is the situation, then all of us can considerately say that, okay, that is the challenge they are confronted with. But the traffic situations and the jams that we see, sometimes they are influenced by the festivities of the moment, sometimes just mere maybe vehicular congestions here and there and all of that. That should not be justification whatsoever, especially when we are living in times when the prices of fuel, considerably and progressively are becoming better and better. So what is the motivation? And indeed, look, I'm going to tell you, some of them, they have even adopted the approach of, like you earlier indicated. Now they demarcate, should I say, they demarcate the journey in the sense that what ordinarily is supposed to be a very long journey, now they cut it into bits and pieces just so that they are able to make more profit. All of this, I'm saying, is an attitudinal deficiency, and therefore I'm happy that we are seeing task force being deployed to ensure maximum compliance. Because if you do not ensure compliance, and government is all about deploying complementary buses, yes, it may be giving us some results, but we have to enforce what really has to be done. And so I'm happy about what government is doing, and clearly government is going to continue to do more. We are in an era of blissfulness. Actually, I'm concluding in 30 seconds. So many good things are happening under the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Apart from the fact that the dollar, we are now winning that perennial war. yes, fuel prices are also decreasing. So we shouldn't get into a situation where we create this kind of problems for ourselves. So the enforcement is a wise thing, and I believe it should continue absolutely unabated.
I mean, Carla, there's a role for government to play in this, and I see the point that others have made that, listen, the government should not be getting the kind of flack it is getting. What point, or what percentage really? I mean, what do you put at the doorsteps of government in being able to get this, fixing it, and ensuring that people can go about their normal duties? Because public transport system has failed. The Ayalolo, the bus rapid systems. I mean, not necessarily a fault of this government because it's been there like a year. But in fact, it started that BRT in 2016. It didn't quite work. Then it left. The next government didn't really work on that. So there's a bit of government's role to play in all of this. Would you not agree?
Kwaku, government role is 90% in my opinion. I've listened to my two co-panelists, and in the sense that they're talking about short-term fixes, then yes, absolutely. Perhaps, reducing profiteering, etc., is important in the short term. But I was very uncomfortable with the attempts to throw this all on the, in the lap of the private sector transport providers. And yes, it is true, to a certain extent, some public transport in other countries has been privatized. Like in the UK, I'm not familiar with everywhere else, but I'm familiar with somewhere like London, where I think that the London, quote unquote, public bus system has been privatized. It's run by private operators, but it is under contract with the government. So the government controls the prices, the schedules, and all that, and ensures that they run on time, right? The tube, for example, the train, the underground train, or the metro, as it's called in other countries, is actually controlled by the government. It's not a private. It's not a private enterprise. And at the end of the day, if you're relying on private people, I think one of my co-panelists talked about compliance. What are they complying with? If they tell you that they don't want to drive beyond this point, there's nothing. What are they complying with? That's their private business. You can't force them to do it. So ultimately, what needs to be done is that there have to be plans. And, let's not politicize it. We're not saying that it's this particular government we just came to. It's government after government after government. What are we doing? Is there a train system? They build roads. They build narrow roads. They don't have bus lanes. Where are the buses supposed to drive even? You know what I mean? How are they helping? You could do that. You could build a road and you can have a bus lane so that the bus doesn't have to drive in traffic like anybody else. Are you doing that? No. So, I mean, there's so much responsibility on the government. And the attempt to blame the private sector operators fully, I find it rather disingenuous and uncomfortable because, governments make all kinds of promises to us when they come into power. And it is your responsibility to make the city more livable for everybody who lives in it. And true, you cannot make a huge change in a short term, in a short space of time. So the kind of temporary fixes are important. I acknowledge them. They're great. But long term, what are you doing? They've been talking about rail systems. We never see any of it. It's time to do something about it and stop blaming the private sector operators.
I mean, Stephen, because you are a nurse, you are such a critical artery in the healthcare delivery system. You and your colleagues. I mean, I've seen nurses at bus stops having to wait for several hours. All sort of people who have incredible roles to play in our national development and in the bigger economy, all struggling to do that. Are you able to quantify in the last few weeks that this thing has been raging on, how this has been affecting you and your colleagues, and ultimately the delivery of your responsibilities in the hospitals and the clinics?
Oh, yes, I would say, yeah, but for quantifying, it will be difficult. But the impact, I would say, has been very massive because a lot of complaints have been coming from most of our colleagues living in those areas because of traffic jams, having to wait for longer hours before even getting transportation to work and that matter. And for that matter, I think something urgent needs to be done. When you look at the solutions that are being brought on board, I think they are in the right direction. They are going to help. But whilst these solutions are being brought on board, I think something has to also be considered. Because if government is to bring a lot of public transport to the market to occupy our cities, to make transportation easy and affordable, we should also be reminded that whilst a lot of buses are being put on the streets, is going to add up to the traffic jam, and for that matter, the congestion is going to increase. So our government is trying to do that in the short term. Long-term alternatives, I think, needs to be also be considered in the sense that alternative routes for maybe some selected public transport need to be created. Even as Kara was saying, if the rail system is going to be, given attention and started to be implemented in some key areas, it's also going to help, because when it comes to the health sector, it's a sector that cannot be taken for granted. And as a health personnel, you need to get to work with a lot of energy to be able to concentrate and work. And if you have to wait for longer hours in traffic jams before even getting home late, and you have to come back the following morning, get up early in the morning, have to wait longer hours at a bus stop before getting transportation to work. A whole lot of issues. And at the end of the day, it's the patient, the ordinary Ghanaian, who gets to suffer the consequences.
I mean, I can imagine the stress you have to endure 2-3 hours waiting for vehicle to get to work, and then after closing you do another 3 hours, so that's 6 hours on the road. Imagine you close at 5, you get a car at 8, then the traffic catches you till you get home at 9:30, then you have to sleep and you have to wake up at 4 o'clock again tomorrow because you have to leave early so they can get a vehicle. It's a cycle. It's a cycle of stress, really, when it comes to some of these things that we are seeing. But of course, there's a bigger, broader conversation apart from the short-term fixes, and I would really be interested in knowing what Shanov thinks about this. But Dr. Samiaye, you would agree that successive governments, and including this one, including Joe Mahama 1 and now, have really failed to rethink the urban transportation system. Because what we have now with the trotros, apart from the fact that the vehicles are not even fit for purpose, the entire system is haphazard. Urban public transport has just been left in the hands of private persons, profiteering, obviously, but in a way that is completely disorganized and not delivering on the proper service that people will need. And so that's why everybody's now, they get some little money, they want to buy a car, which is fine. It gives them some comfort, but that would mean more cars on the road, more traffic. All of that feeds into this. Imagine we had a proper bus system. I live at Medina. I know that 5:30 my bus is there and it's moving. I know that at 5:45, because of that, I'll be in my office. Why am I going to drive and pay more in fuel prices? So those of you in power have failed to fix the urban public transportation system as we have it now.
Yes, Kwaku Asante, I disagree with you in some parts. In some parts, I agree with you. You see, Ghana is a developing country. There's no doubt about it. We have developmental challenges, including transport. I remember when His Excellency the President John Dramani Mahama was in government. There were a lot of efforts we did as far as Ayalolo is concerned. I remember under the MPP, President Kufuor also did his part. But the mere fact that as a developing country, we have little challenges as far as financing is concerned. Even the one that we have bought, sometimes finances to even do maintenance is not easy. And so there is a huge responsibility on government to control or regulate or even manage the private sector. Look, the transport sector, the world over, largely is private sector led. Even developed countries that have the necessary financial muscles to even, propel government to enter into serious public transport, they are encouraged to do private sector led transport systems. And so this matter is a matter of, citizens or private owners trying to earn more. We understand that we all have to earn more, we all have to eke out a decent living. But it must not be at the disadvantage of the ordinary Ghanaian who has not voted in any way. You understand the point I'm making? And so that's why in some part I disagreed with, I don't know whether it's Clara or Cara or can you, if you can help
It's Kala.
You understand the point I'm making? There are laws, there are regulations. Indeed, under President Kufuor, there was an agreement between government and GPRTU that fares must be adjusted twice a year. You recall that when we came and we had significant inroads as far as fuel prices is concerned. GPRTU was forced to reduce. I mean, they ordered their members to reduce fares by 15%. That arrangement is there, except that sometimes government cannot just at the first instance of seeing that some laws are being broken, get into it. And we always encourage the citizens themselves to do the right thing, what have you, until when force necessarily has to be applied. And so I'm saying that, yes, we can do more. Government has done some before. Government is committed to doing more. I know that from Monday going, especially in where there is high, commute, where you have a lot of traffic, Kaswa, Dodowa, Adenta, Tema, Kaneshi, Odoka, and those areas. Some buses will be provided to avert the matter. At the same time, there will be other negotiations with, GPRTU, TUC, and all the other stakeholders so that this matter can be amicably resolved. We have taken notice of it. We have not lost sight of it. And we can assure the public that the right thing will be done and this matter will be averted.
You, Shanov, these days you've been enjoying, you've been traveling the world. You were in Brazil recently. You seen, I mean, you use public transport because you didn't drive there. You saw how it worked, whether it's in the private hands or in public hands. And then you see what we have back here. I respect the point that Sammy just makes about how we are a developing country. But after 68, 69 years, we'll be 70 next year. Transport is such a lifeline, it's such an artery in being able to get to the point where we can develop.
Well, so in the references that Sammy made and in the one that you have just alluded to, all of that points to one fact, that this sector, if it's going to be managed properly, would require a lot of private sector participation. But in those jurisdictions that we immediately defer to, those who man the affairs there are attitudinally very reasonable. I'm going to give you an example, and maybe I could just import it for the purposes of the conversation. In Belém, for example, in the city of Belém in Brazil, just because you decided to add it to the conversation, ordinarily I wouldn't have added it anyway. Now, something very fantastic happened. I mean, the very first time I was moving from, where I was, I was staying to one of the, if I remember, one of the malls, they are, even their Uber systems, right? They have integrated it so generously that, like, you would not have to even have hard cash on you before you can, chatter. Okay, you can be in your hotel. Once you connect to Wi-Fi, you chatter. When you come, it is added up to your cost. And one of the drivers, I remember, did something that was remarkably very pleasant. When we got in, I think the drive on that day was particularly long. Do you know what, Kwaku? Do you know what this Brazilian man did? Right along the journey, he just stopped and asked us if we wanted coffee, and so we were taken aback. I mean, is the man going to be the one to pay? He said, yeah, if it is coffee or water, he's going to provide, because yes, the atmosphere around that time, the climate around that time was very humid, and therefore he was feeling that we would need something to hydrate and all of that. Look at the attitude. Again, takes me back to the earlier point I was making. If it is going to fall in private hands, clearly those people who are going to man the affairs have to be attitudinally reasonable. In terms of
people are talking about the people who will be managing.
The private owners. I mean, the private transport operators. It is the whole thing is attitude now. That's why, like I indicated earlier, as much as I believe what government is doing and I applaud it, and it's extremely commendable, it all boils down to how the private owners, drivers, mates, as we call them, how they just decide to run the ship. Because really, you can't mount uninterrupted 24/7 surveillance on them. At every given point, they have the discretion to decide where to move, how to charge, and all of that. And so if their attitude is animated by corruption and avarice and extreme desire to possess and have and own wealth, really, we are not going anywhere. And so I'm getting back to the Brazil example again. Look at this gentleman who knows that, first of all, it's not going to pay instantly. Then he decides to actually offer us coffee and water. Can you imagine? Look at the shared generosity, the thoughtfulness. Okay, not to be disrespectful or not to compare it to anybody in Ghana, but really quick, when have you ever picked an Uber and anybody has decided to extend such a gesture to you here in our local jurisdiction before? So it all comes down to attitude. Government, yes, I agree with Kala. Kala says that it is all about government, it's all about government and all of that. I agree, yes. For every other issue, government is the key stakeholder. But if those in the private sector who are supposed to complement the efforts of government are being unreasonable, they are focused on profits, they are not being sensitive to the plight and the challenges of the everyday road user, then clearly we have a long way to go. So maybe I want to use this opportunity and this platform to appeal to all the private, transport operators that, look, we understand their appetites and, or if you like, their business concern for profit, but we need to begin to put a human face to some of, these development. There is something on your screen. I'm just seeing it. I don't know if I could read it. I'm just reading somebody's story. He said that the same car I boarded at Ashoma Estate to Circle, I boarded the same car from Ashoma Estate to Circle, but paid the fare for 3 short trips rather than 1 long trip. I have also had experiences at Atomic Junction. The minibuses were not there, and the buses which entered the station had their conductors announce you pay estate fare no matter where you alight. Kweku, isn't this an attitudinal deficiency? Look at something like this, a clear attitudinal deficiency, and I'm sure when you start reading the comments, you'll be able to collate and tabulate a lot. So it is really about the attitudes of those who man the various public transport vehicles. And so I'm using the opportunity to implore them, plead on their conscience to put a human face to it, so that we all begin to bask in the excitement of the good work being masterminded by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.
Yeah, Kala, because you've been out there, and I mean, I was in Germany once. You pay some 52 euros. You would do train rides the entirety of a month, and in fact, the system works in such a way that, in fact, there's no incentive for you to be driving around because the public transport system is very efficient. Train, trams, all over. And I mean, what's his name? Samiaye is a globetrotter. He was also in the UK recently. I'm sure he enjoyed some of that. But Carla, so there's also a gap that, of course, the government hasn't taken advantage of. But private sector can also look at that and fill it in. Because I've seen the buses that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and the NPP imported in, the electric buses with air conditioning in it, is working quite well. So there's a gap for private sector to fill it. And it appears
Kwaku, let's be real. Let's be real about my co-panelists, all of whom, there's some truth in what they're saying. Absolutely. Maybe people are being unreasonable and greedy. But then how much, are the trotro drivers really making massive profits? Are they living large on the profits of their business? I doubt it. They just want to live a good life. They're being unreasonable. 100% they are. And I never said that it was totally government. I said that the responsibility for public utilities, and to a large extent, public transport is a public utility, right? And like I said, the lack of thought of not even providing bus lanes when they're building roads is an example of how our governments are not thinking enough about the people. I know we're a developing country. I know our resources are stretched. But when you are building a road, build it a bit wider and allocate a space for buses so that they don't have to sit in the traffic like everybody else, right? And it has been said that, public transport is private sector led. So London's underground, like I said, is not private sector led. It is owned by the government. New York's subway is owned by the government. Paris's metro is owned by the government. And even where they have bus systems, they are controlled by the government, right? So the idea that you can provide public utilities and that they are quote unquote private sector led, they cannot be private sector led. Private sector can participate. And I still say that the attempt to throw all the responsibility on the private sector, once you're in the free market, those people are in it for profit. Let's be realistic. They're in it for profit. And even when they're in it for profit, they are struggling just as much as the people that they carry. At least the drivers are. So I am not making excuses for them, but I am not comfortable with the excuses from kind of government, like, oh, yes, the short-term fixes are necessary, they're important, and obviously the government is listening to the concerns of the people. But long-term, you cannot say, oh, the people are being greedy. What are you doing? Where's the rail system? what are you doing to improve long term? We are a developing country, which means that we are in a position to plan for the future and plan for a better future. I'm just not seeing it. And it's very disappointing. It is very disappointing because we need that future. And like I said, this is just one example of how Accra is becoming less and less livable for everybody, but more importantly, for the for the least privileged. It's becoming so difficult to survive. And isn't that what the government is there to do? NDC is a social democratic party. NDC, what are you doing for the people at the bottom of the pyramid?
Yeah.
Long term. Short term, yes, we've heard the fixes. They are wonderful. Long term, what is the solution?
Yeah, I like the point you make about social democratic orientation, because then that is where they should be really looking at. But like someone was saying on X the last time, it appears the NDC themselves are losing that social ideal, that they are now becoming private sector. Because Samia wants to make a point. You are losing that. Everything is now private sector.
Nobody's saying that everything should be. But no, quick. But I'm saying quick one. I mean, it is rather unfortunate that Carla initially said this is not a matter that should be politicized. Then hold on. Then in the next breath, she's using. Hold on. Carla, hold on. I think you've had your bite. Kweku, listen. She said that this is not a matter that should be politicized. Then in the next breath, she's using.
She's not politicizing it. So sound of you, the mic is on. She's saying, but NDC is the government.
Taking my microphone off.
The NDC is in the government.
Hold on. Why? Look, in one breath, just give me 30 seconds. In one breath, you say that this should be treated as a national crisis. Then in the next spine of thought, you are using the ideological orientation of the NDC to demand action. It is not one that would, give us that kind of nationalistic conversation in any way. There is a problem. Hold on, I understand. There's a problem to be solved. Let's just solve it. Don't shade the NDC and say, well, it's a social democracy. In fact, are there not already interventions? Samia has already told us there are more interventions that will be rolled in. So clearly, there is responsiveness from government. So no need to shade the party. That's the point.
Okay.
So
I'm not funding that, Sando.
If a government cannot be challenged by its own ideology, and that is not about politicization. No, this is the government that is in power now.
Is the government sleeping? No, but if the government were sleeping on the job.
Yeah, but 1 year on, what is the blueprint? What have you shown that you have some serious ideas about? But you hold on. Shut up. I beg you. I'm going to come to you. So I want you to hold there for me. Then let me hear from Sami on that.
Yes, Kwaku, and I think I am enjoying the conversation, and I appreciate Carla's belief in the NDC government. And I must stress that we appreciate her support and her belief in us. At least she knows that we are able to deliver. I want to assure her that conversations are far gone as far as.
Is this one of the politicians' language? It is in the pipeline.
No.
Advanced.
No. I want to assure her that conversations are far advanced in terms of bringing in a lot of public transport to augment what the private sector is doing. I disagree with her when she speaks about bus lanes and what have you. She's suggesting that.
Really?
No, hold on. The point I'm making is that are you suggesting that we do not have enough buses because there are no bus lanes? There are already buses in Ghana.
No.
You understand? And I appreciate. Hold on. I appreciate if you say that, of course, there should be expansion, we should create bus lanes and what have you. It is a conversation we can have going forward. It is a long-term conversation.
Hello? I think Dr. Samia has dropped.
Now, what we are thinking of, to that effect, you understand? President Mahama has already made mention of big push and what have you. These big push projects are not mere projects or mere roads that we are going to do. These are heavy roads that will have all these, features you are speaking about. Government has not lost sight of that fact. And we are, like I made mention of, we started conversations of importing a lot of, public buses to augment the matter. But buses are not often just merely because there are no bus lanes. You understand? These are clear financial issues because of where we stand as a country. You understand? That must I mean, we must not lose sight of that fact. That's the point I'm making.
Brilliant. Really interesting points that have been made. Let me take some thoughts because you have been sending us messages and you are really impacted by this. This one from Jones Adoboy listening in last says, good evening, Joy FM. Very laudable and good news about government plan to provide passenger buses. This really demonstrates government's commitment to be answerable to the citizenry. The arrest of Sedna also demonstrates, okay, well, you are also very interested in the arrest. This one from Nana from Spintex Road says, guys, please, our non-maintenance culture is what has brought us to this point. Are we buying new buses to also break down? I was in Burkina Faso in December and I saw a lot of new electric small buses introduced into the system. Finally, what happened to the ambulances parked? The last government said they were not fit for purpose. Can we utilize them? This one from Kofi Century in Kumasi says, my worry is that mostly with the price hikes during peak hours and a major cause is the extortion of money from drivers by the Ghana Police MTTD. Ordinary passengers bear the consequences. Drivers have to recoup their monies lost to police officers during peak hours. That's your thoughts also. And this is a very long one, but doesn't add the name. It says, I would like to commend the Transport Minister for calling out the commercial transport operators for this artificial shortage. The practice has, however, been going on for a while. I previously lived in a Shoman estate and commuted daily to the ministries in Accra for my national service in 2018. The big minibuses, that's the sprinter buses, depart early, the last of them departing by 5:45 a.m. They loaded to Accra and circle straight. When the last of the sprinters left, it's now left to the other minibuses, the most popular one being the Toyota Fish. They will load to Dome, then when the vehicle gets to Dome, they load at Chimota. At Chimota, they load Circle, and then at Circle, they load Accra again. I have on countless occasions experienced this myself. The same car I boarded at a Showman estate got me to Circle, but paid the fares for 3 short trips rather than 1 long trip. I've also had experience at Atomic Junction. The minibuses were not there, and the buses and all of that. So that's a pretty interesting story that you've just told us. And this conversation is going to go on air because people are struggling. And as we speak, I'm sure there are people listening to Ghana Connect at some bus stop in Accra because they are not getting a vehicle. So for those of you who drive, I think this is a little admonition. I know there are real safety issues. But if you can and you get to a bus stop, please stop and pick a few people. If you believe you can be safe enough, pick a few people and then drop them at the nearest point closer to them if they are on your path. I think we can all chip in because this is a big crisis on our hand. GPRTU must set up, but it's a private organization. The government has to do what it has to do. They say they are going to do that. We are looking for that. But all of us in our shared humanity must help each and everyone that is going a various way. Thank you very much, Stephen Kwejo Techia. Dr. Samiaye, thank you very much for joining. Kala Olympio, as always, bringing the fire. Thank you very much. And then Kwaku Asante, who has been giving lifts, but somebody just told me that he gives lifts to only females. And so that is the concern that person has shared, that Shandoff must give lift because when he gets to the bus stop, he only gets down and asks only ladies to sit in. I know he has safety issues, but there are gentlemen who are also going to some places. My name is Kwaku Asante. Show produced by Collins and then Evelyn. I'll see you again same time next week.